everyone to our program tonight. My name is Kate Angelo. I'm the Community Engagement Librarian at the Long Branch Public Library. I'm happy to have here with us Monmouth County Clerk Christine Giordano Hanlon. The County Clerk is an official authorized by the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and upon election to the office carries a 5-year term. Clerk Hanlon was elected as Monmouth County Clerk in November 2015. Prior to being elected as County Clerk, she practiced law for over 20 years and has focused her legal practice on government affairs and municipal law. She's also a former commissioner on the Monmouth County Board of Elections, serving as secretary for 2 years. Clerk Hanlon will be giving us a brief overview of what her office can offer our community, as well as clearing up any confusion you may have about how, when, and where to vote for the November 3rd election. Just a quick note about our program here. We ask that anyone with a question, please type it in the chat and I will read all relevant questions out loud. To find the chat box, please look near the bottom of your window. If you see chat, click on it. If you don't, there should be 3 dots on the right side. And once you click those, you should get some additional options, one of which should be the chat box. With that, I give the floor to Clerk Hanlon.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you tonight. You had asked me to give an overview of my office. It's been my honor to serve as the county clerk for the past 5 years. And the county clerk has basically a whole variety of functions. And basically, I oversee 5 different divisions. One of the biggest is relating to property recordings. And, you know, if people have mortgages or deeds, anything relating to a property transaction is filed and recorded in my office. I also handle the county archives and the county's historical records. I handle the county's online records management. We have passport services. I swear in all the notaries in the county and issue certain types of licenses. And of course, I have an elections division, and that's the topic of the day. So the county clerk has certain election functions. Some people think the county clerk handles all of the elections functions in the county, but it's actually about 1/3 of the election function. The county clerk is responsible for preparation of all of the ballots that you would see in an election. And there's all different types of ballots. There's the mail-in ballot, there's provisional ballots, emergency ballots, and the machine ballot that you would see on a voting machine. There's actually a big piece of paper behind that screen. And then the county clerk is responsible for sort of certifying the results at the end of the night. There are 2 other election offices that have a really big role in the election process, though, and most people think that they fall under the county clerk's office, but they do not. They're actually separate offices, separate jurisdiction, and separate duties. There's the superintendent of elections that handles the voter file. It's the statewide voter registration system, and she handles voter registration, party affiliations, voter history, updates to the voter file. She also handles the voting machines in an election. And then there is the Board of Elections, which is another entity. And the Board of Elections is run more by the political parties. There are the commissioners, the heads of the office, are appointed by the governor. And there's an equal number of Republicans and Democrats who oversee the office. And they, of course, have a staff that deals with the day-to-day operations. And that office plays a very big role in the election process. They handle the counting of the paper ballots, the mail-ins and the provisionals. They handle poll workers, polling locations, drop boxes, and they have a few other duties. So they have a very big role in the election process. And my office works hand in hand with those 2 other offices to effectuate the election process. So with that, I think you have some questions for me. So I wanted to lead into the questions if you'd like to ask.
Absolutely. So I think we'll start with, can you just briefly explain the difference between the provisional ballot and the mail-in ballot that people are receiving at home?
Okay, so as most voters know by now, we actually sent a postcard to every registered voter, and most voters have received their ballots, but there was a big change to the election process this year. And the change, which was signed by the governor, was that this election would be a primarily mail-in ballot election, meaning that all active registered voters would receive a mail-in ballot for voting. Voters could also go to polling locations, which would be limited, and they could vote on a paper provisional ballot if they chose not to vote on the mail-in ballot. And there's an exception to that for voters who have a disability, where they are unable to vote a paper ballot, and those voters can vote on a voting machine. But everyone else would have to either vote on the mail-in ballot and the provisional ballot. A mail-in ballot is basically like voting on the voting machine in the sense that it does not need an additional verification process that a provisional ballot would go through. A mail-in ballot is almost like it's equal to a vote on the machine, where once your signature is verified and you're in the voter list, you can vote on a mail-in ballot and it will be accepted. A provisional ballot goes through an additional verification process, and a provisional ballot will not be counted until after all the other votes are counted. Provisional ballots are counted if they're verified and they are accepted by the Board of Elections, but they're only counted after this whole verification process. And the process includes whether the voter is a registered voter, whether the voter is, entitled to vote, and whether the voter has not already voted on a mail-in ballot or on one of the voting machines if the voter is a disabled voter. So there is a difference between the mail-in ballot and the provisional ballot. They look almost exactly alike. It'll just say mail-in ballot on one and it'll say provisional ballot on the other, but the provisional ballots are held in abeyance until all of these other ballots are counted and they go through an additional verification process. And that's actually nothing new this year. This is the law in the state of New Jersey about provisional ballots. They are always checked, double checked, and counted after everything else.
Okay, great, thank you. If someone hasn't received their mail-in ballot yet at home, should they still expect it? Should they assume it's not coming and take some steps to get it another way?
Yes, so it actually depends on when the voter registered to vote or maybe created an update to their voter profile. So according to the law for this year, the ballots had to be mailed by October 5th to voters. But voter registration was taking place until October 13th. So whatever voters were in the voter file at the time we pulled the list to mail the ballots to the voters by October 5th, those ballots went out. If a voter has made a change, maybe they moved, something else happened, which they were entitled to do up until October 13th, or voters could register up till October 13th, those changes and those new registrations, those ballots are still being mailed. So it really depends on when the voter registered or if they made a change. The large majority of ballots were mailed already. We mailed about 400, almost 470,000 ballots already went out. We have a few thousand more based on these later changes that will be going out. They should be going out tomorrow. So those voters will still be receiving a ballot. one of the issues we're running into is that many ballots are coming back to us as undeliverable, and there's a few reasons why that's taking place. It could be that the voter made an address change, but that address change never made it to the voter registration office. It could be that voters have forwarded their mail somewhere. They might be away temporarily, but the post office does not forward ballots. So those ballots have come back to us. So for most voters, if you have not received your ballot yet, it's best to contact my office. And unless you were one of these late registrants, and they weren't late according to the law, it was just late after we sent out the initial batch of ballots. The county clerk's email address is clerkofelections@co.monmouth.nj.us, and voters can find that on our social media pages or our website, and they can email us with their name, address, and date of birth, and we can check on the ballot and reissue the ballot if need be. Voters can always, at any time, come down to the elections office and get a ballot right then and there. If they feel like they're concerned about getting a ballot, they can come in. We're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and voters can come in and get a ballot and vote it. They just walk down the hall and then they return it to the Board of Elections. So that's another option.
That's good. I'm assuming the answer to this is going to be very similar to your last answer, but what should voters do if they have they lost their ballot, damaged it, made a mistake while filling it out?
Yeah, so it's basically the same. They can reach out to us. Voters can call us. It's 732-431-7790. Although I will say we are getting thousands of calls a day. So the email is the easiest way for voters to get in touch with us. And we're getting hundreds and hundreds of email a day. We're turning it around as fast as we can. And many voters have already contacted us. You know, they damaged something or they spilled something on the ballot. You know, we're happy to reissue.
Okay, great. This was actually my question. I remember when I first registered to vote, I know exactly what my signature looked like. After I got married and changed my name, I honestly am not sure because I've always seen it at the polling place and I copy it. What happens to the mail-in ballots if your signature does not match exactly?
So that's a good question because many voters are asking that question as well, because the large majority of voters are not used to the mail-in ballot process and voters are concerned. So one thing voters are able to do is update their signature with voter registration. On the voter registration form, there's actually a little box to check for signature update. And you check the box, you fill out your information, you sign it and submit it to the voter registration office. And then that signature gets scanned into the voter registration system. The Board of Election, I don't do the signature process. That's the Board of Elections. And what they do is if there is an issue with the signature, that ballot is flagged for the commissioners who are appointed by the governor, and these are the from each political party. They actually sit and take a vote as to whether that signature matches or doesn't. It's like they're judges or they're taking a vote. They always try to give the voter the benefit of the doubt, and there are guidelines now that they follow that were issued by the Secretary of State's office about how to do this analysis. So they really do try to give the voter the benefit of the doubt. If they decide that the signature does not match, the voter must be contacted within a short period of time for the voter to have the opportunity to cure that signature issue. So there is a process in place now where the Board of Elections notifies the voter if there's any issue with respect to the signature. And then the voter can, it's called the cure process, and the voter can cure the issue relating to the signature.
Okay, Great. Okay. I have a few questions from the library staff, actually. One of our staff members drove out to the Board of Elections office to drop off her ballot and had to stand in a short line to give them the ballot. And she wondered why she had to show ID to do that, but had she just stuck it in the drop box, no ID necessary.
That's an excellent question. And many voters have asked that question. It's just the law. So that is the state law. And that is what all of the election officials have to deal with. So
Sure.
I agree that it seems a little inconsistent, but that is the state law. And I think it is something that needs to be corrected in the future, because the law about showing your ID when you go to the Board of Elections to drop off your ballot was passed before this law that was passed this year, and we had all of these ballot drop boxes.
Right.
So I think some point in time that's gonna be resolved, but for this year, it's just the law that they have to follow. There's a lot of, you'd be surprised how many state laws there are relating to elections, and some of them can be a little bit inconsistent. So I wish I had a better answer for that, but it is state law and that's how they have to do it.
No problem. Thank you. Someone asked if I'm registered as one party, can they vote for the opposite party?
Absolutely. That only comes into play during a primary election, because you will only get a ballot for one party or the other. For the general election, anyone can vote for anyone they want to vote for.
And can I vote via mail and in person, or just one way?
No, you cannot vote twice. Only one time. I know that some voters have had, concerns, because they're concerned, well, what if my ballot doesn't arrive for counting? Maybe I can go do something else. It is illegal to vote 2 times, and voters could be prosecuted for voting 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
So that cannot be done. But what you can do to check whether your ballot was received is to sign up for one of the ballot tracking programs. The state has a ballot tracking program. Everything's on my website, monmouthcountyvotes.com. And then I launched another, like a supplemental ballot tracking program that actually will notify the voter with an email or a text when the ballot's received by the Board of Elections. Some voters had expressed that they had trouble signing up for the state-run system. So we added this supplemental system with the added feature of the notification. So it's better to go sign up for the notification so that you'll know that your ballot was received, or you can hand deliver it and just go in person to drop it off, but do not vote twice.
Great. I have a couple of questions about the actual paper mail-in ballot. One is, they're very similar. One is, do I have to sign the front where it says bearer? And the other one is, what if I give my ballot to someone else to put in the ballot box without signing the front?
Okay, so the bearer law pertains to someone who's transporting a ballot for someone else. So the voter, if you're transporting your own ballot, you do not sign the bearer section. A bearer is someone else who transports your ballot. So the voter should not and does not sign the bearer section of their own ballot. It comes into play, or I'm sorry, their own ballot envelope. It comes into play when you hand your ballot to someone you trust to deliver it for you, whether it's the drop box or the mailbox, or to deliver it in person. And in that scenario, that bearer section needs to be signed in front of you if you're handing it to someone else to deliver. So it only comes into play when you're handing your ballot to someone else, and someone can only transport 3 ballots in the entire election cycle in addition to their own ballot. So it's not 3 ballots per day or 3 ballots per week. It's 3 ballots for the entire election in addition to your own ballot. So your second question is really something for the Board of Elections. I can't speak to that because it's something that the Board of Elections officials would have to make a determination about. But just to reiterate, if you give your ballot to someone else to drop in a drop box or the mail or hand deliver, that bare section has to be filled out in front of you.
Thank you. If someone puts their ballot in a drop box on November 3rd, is that too late?
No, 8 p.m. though is the deadline. Okay. So some voters say, look, I want to go out and vote on election day. I don't want to vote before that. So the options for the voters, there's a few options if they want to do that on election day. They can drop it in a drop box by 8 p.m. on election day. They can hand deliver it to the Board of Elections by 8 p.m. on election day. They can bring it to their polling location by 8 p.m. on election day. They can put it in the mail, but it has to be postmarked on election day. And those are the options for the mail-in ballot on election day. The 8 p.m. is really important for the drop box, for the hand delivery to the Board of Elections, or for if you're going to bring your mail-in ballot to the polling location. I hope that answered that question.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, my last question that I have here, less factual, more your opinion. With so many voters already turning in their ballots, do you think mail-in ballots in 2020 will change the way voting looks for the future?
I hope not.
No,
I'm just kidding. My understanding is this is really limited to this year.
Okay.
Voting by mail has always been an option for, for a long time for voters in New Jersey. And this may change the face of election in the sense that voters may get comfortable with voting by mail and more people will apply to vote by mail because they felt comfortable with the process. What I've just heard just in conversation is that the state may look to other options or going back to our normal process for the future, that this is just for this year because of the health crisis, but it remains to be seen. There's always little changes to elections each year that, we'd have different laws come into play. So I can't say for sure. I think that the state there already have been some bills, a bill proposed for early voting on machines. Like in New York, they have early voting on machines.
Right.
That may be the future for New Jersey. It's a big financial investment and we'll see what happens there. But I think the state is looking to give voters other options. So it may be more in the sense of early voting on machines. And perhaps more voters will just get comfortable with mail-in ballots and we'll have more people applying to vote by mail.
Okay. Do we have any additional questions from our participants?
No questions here, but Christine, I just want to say you've been very informative and very helpful. You answered a lot of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad.
All right. I'm just going to share my screen one more time with the county clerk's office contact information. And then, okay, I want to thank you, Clerk Hanlon, for joining us and providing such great information. Thank you to everyone who joined us. If you want to reach out to me, my information is there, and County Clerk's email address and phone number are there as well. And just thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Take care.
You too.